Here is kind of difficult to navigate, and we have Tobias going first with the Ralt start, the Wonder Tag, most likely getting that Bridget supporter card, something we've seen all throughout this weekend.
It's kind of the standard play in this Gardevoir deck. Seems like every time we cast it, we talk about the optimal turn one, more or less, is Wonder Tag for Bridget, then fill your bench. You have a lot of moving parts in this deck. You really want to have as many Gardevoir GX. You want to have as many Ralts on the board as possible so you can evolve them into Gardevoir GX. Maybe save one for a Gallade, but Bridget is definitely one of the supporter cards that lets you do that and kind of lets you get set up immediately.
Yeah, and there we see the Bridget pulled to the front. Now he's making sure, okay, I got all my basics, right?
Yeah, Tobias is going to go ahead and take some time to look through his deck. I would expect this to get Ralts, Remoraid, which it does. Another interesting difference in the list is that Tobias is running Octillery, which is pretty standard. He's running a 2-2 line of it, which a lot of players have only ran 1-1, but we've seen some 2-2. It's not actually uncommon.
Yeah, it's a card that pairs very well with Gallade.
Yeah, that Octillery's Abyssal Hand ability will come into play, just letting you draw cards. If you get end low or just kind of run out of cards in your hand. Like we said, that's pretty common. Most of the Gardevoir GX lists have been playing it. However, Minaki's is not.
And one important thing Tobias also got was the turn one energy, which sometimes you kind of have to sacrifice if you go for that Bridget.
Yeah, one of the things about cards like Bridget is they're supporter cards that don't actually draw you cards, or they don't really provide any card advantage to your hand. You see something like a Professor Sycamore that Minaki just played he just drew 7 cards. He has so many more options, and whereas Bridget just kind of, you're putting stuff on the board, but you're not getting really to choose, you're not getting a wide range of cards, rather.
Yeah, and there we see a rare candy, turn 2 Gardevoir GX from Tobias, where Minaki's turn 1 was kind of anemic. He played a Paralocity, which these decks usually don't play stadiums, and it might come in handy later on, but other than the Sycamore, he just got a Ralts.
Yeah, I mean, the Paralocity can matter. Like you said, you want to have a lot of Pokemon on your bench, but Tobias was happy to just discard the Tapu Lele there. He has 3 Ralts, which means 2 can be Gardevoirs, 1 can be a Gallade if it needs to. It's actually, he already has the Remoraid. It's not going to have a huge impact, probably. It does cut him off of things at this point, like Tapu Leles and things like that, but it's not the biggest impact play. And yeah, definitely just kind of ending the turn with a single Ralts in play and a Fairy Energy attached to your Tapu Lele is not where Minaki wanted to be.
Yeah, Minaki focuses his deck on Alolan Vulpix. He plays 2 copies of the card, and that's really what helps him get set up, especially since he only plays 1 rare candy, and it looks like he has that rare candy in his hand.
Yeah, so I was going to, when Tobias played the Gardevoir GX that turn, I was going to say something about Minaki. You're probably not a play you're going to see out of Minaki, but it looks like he actually just has the single copy of rare candy and the Gardevoir GX in his hand, so he is going to be able to put that powerful GX Pokemon onto the board next turn. Like we've alluded to, Minaki is going for a much more, I would say, more slow, but more consistent deck. I think he's trying to specifically make his deck very good against the Garbodor variants by not playing many items. Instead of going for the 4 rare candy or 3 rare candy that we've seen out of a lot of these decks, he's actually going for just a 4-4 line of Ralts and Kirlia, which means he's expecting to actually just evolve into the stage 1 a lot more often, and maybe not be as explosive with the number of Gardevoirs he's going to get on the board, but he's going to be able to kind of draw into them more consistently.
Yeah, so he has the option of attaching the double colorless to the Tapu Lele to take a knockout on Ralts. But if he does that, he leaves it wide open for an Infinite Force next turn from Tobias.
Yeah, he doesn't want to commit too many energy. It's interesting because you do have a finite number of energy, and where you're placing your energy is important. It's kind of awkward that he can't actually attack with this Tapu Lele. Normally you can kind of throw a double colorless on it and you can energy drive just kind of for value if you're not doing anything else. But because of that turn 1 fairy attachment, he will have to actually commit a second energy, and a pretty valuable one in double colorless if he wants to attack.
Yeah, and it does look like he has a Versus Seeker in hand. I don't believe he's played a supporter this turn yet.
He has not. It looks like he's considering whether he wants to attach that double colorless and where. He has used Gardevoir's Secret Spring ability to attach to itself. And it looks like, yeah, the Versus Seeker is going to get back a Professor Sycamore.
All right, really going deep in the tank. He doesn't want to give up 2 prizes that easily, especially this early in the game.
Going to take a look at Tobias's discard pile. Is Minaki. Tobias kind of had a not as explosive turn 2 either, just kind of getting some evolutions out.
All right, he chooses to attach the double colorless to the Gardevoir GX. Sycamore for a brand new hand of 7. We finally see that Vulpix.
Yeah, Alolan Vulpix coming into play. Usually kind of thing you want to start with and maybe Beacon on the first turn or two. So it's not going to provide him a whole lot of value at this point, but it's still very good. Beacon does cost 0 energy, which is one of the biggest things. So he can, just make a play to Beacon at any time and just fill his hand with some of those evolutions, which is what he's going to do right now. Just retreat, all Beacon, and you want to do it on turn 1, but it's not terrible later in the game.
Yeah, especially in this mirror match where it's kind of a game of chicken where you don't want to be the first one to act. Because usually the first one to attack with a Gardevoir GX doesn't essentially end up winning the match unless you're just overwhelmingly overpowering your opponent.
Right, so for instance, in a position like this, Tobias can send up that Gardevoir GX and take a knockout here. He'll take a prize, but he is opening his Gardevoir GX up to getting Infinite Force back. And at the end of the day, you don't want Minaki to just have infinite turns of beaconing. However, you also just don't want your Gardevoir to get knocked out. And the exchange was you took a single prize off of a non-attacking Pokemon that's not overly relevant.
Exactly. And looking at Tobias's hand, he has a Guzma. Guzma could spell trouble for Minaki's Gardevoir GX on the bench.
Yes, this is one of the spots where that's exactly what's going to happen is Tobias is going to just go ahead and say, all right, well, you have one Gardevoir GX on the board. Players don't have access to each other's deck list. So I don't know if how much Tobias knows about his exact...
Well, they actually posted the deck list earlier.
Okay, so they do.
Yeah.
So he actually does know, okay, you have to struggle here to get another Gardevoir. It's going to take you at least another couple more turns. So I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive here.
But it looks like Tobias didn't have any other energy, so he could not get the knockout on the Gardevoir GX.
Oh yeah, it looks like he actually did not have an energy to attach. He missed, so now it's kind of thrown back to Minaki in a way, just like we were talking about. Tobias has become the first player to kind of expose his Gardevoir there. Again, he is putting a lot of pressure on Minaki's Gardevoir GX, which means that it can...
There's the Infinite Force for the knockout. First one to take prizes is Minaki.
Which, as I was saying, which means that the Gardevoir GX, it does have a lot of damage on it, so it can be more easily knocked out by something else, and it is going to be a struggle for Minaki to get multiple set up. But with that being said, he already has the Curly in play. He already has a Fairy Energy attached to it. Like, he is just in the lead now.
Yeah, and there's a Sycamore discarding a lot of resources from Tobias. Let's see, he has the Gardevoir, and I believe a few energy. He will be able to take the knockout if he chooses to. He even has the Glade, which he can choose as an alternate attacker, so to give up one prize instead of the 2.
Yeah, Glade's been pretty interesting to see in this deck, just because there's not really a cost to playing it. You're already playing Ralt, you're already playing Curlias, you're already playing double colorless. Premonition combines well with Abyssal Hand, and there are times where Sensitive Blade is just a huge game.
It looks like Rescue Stretcher taking a Ralts from the discard, putting it back into play.
And now Tobias is in a position where he can evolve to the Gardevoir, attach, take a knockout with the least vulnerable Gardevoir that's been on the board, basically. Just a single energy, and now he's saying, all right, you have the Curlia, you have an energy on it, but you need to rebuild now in order to actually attack me. And I'm kind of taking a knockout here without having to commit much. And as you can see, he's attaching that double colorless to the Curlia, saying, all right, and then I also have this one built up for later in the game.
Yeah, and the Abyssal Hand comes into play. He drew 3 cards, and he seems to be set for next turn, too, with an Ultra Ball in his hand. So there's the knockout, Infinite Force. But another Gardevoir GX comes down for Minaki. Choice Band, and we might see that kind of play where you just have single energy attackers and try to like whittle away the damage.
Yeah, and it looks like, again, Choice Band is getting attached to the Gardevoir GX. It's going to boost the damage a little bit, and then he's attaching the Fairy Energy to the Ralts. Again, just saying, I don't want to commit as much to my Gardevoir GX. You kind of want to have to commit as little as possible to take knockouts. He's not going to be able to take the knockout this turn either, so he's just Secret Springing onto that Ralts and saying, I'm not too concerned about this. I want to make sure that I have stuff set up for later.
All right, this end puts both players to 4 cards. One thing we also haven't really talked about is with the lack of artillery in Minaki's deck, and becomes a real like handicap later on in the game.
And you also see that this is something that's kind of hurting Minaki a little bit here, is that he has no Curlia in his hand.
Oh no!
So this Gardevoir is not guaranteed to be knocked out. It could easily survive through this turn, but this is what we're talking about. It's just so much harder for Minaki to rebuild. With that being said, he does have more Curlia than Tobias, so maybe he'll be able to draw them and get it going, but it definitely kind of puts him in a more slow setup.
And wow, Ultra Ball discarding a double colorless and a fairy energy, getting that Gallade out.
Yeah, so Glade's a nice little piece of interaction here. It doesn't take one-hit knockouts or anything, but it is going to smooth out your consistency, and it also is going to just provide a pretty reasonable amount of damage for a single prize attacker. Just saying, all right, I only have to attach a double colorless. I don't have to worry about this.
We might see a Guzma. Yeah, Guzma bringing up the Ralts. Gallade will come out and most likely take the knockout. He
has to switch
for
for the Guzma, yeah. I think just trying to communicate. That's clearly what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Just trying to communicate what was going on. This is a good play by Tobias. He's just saying, all right, I want to take, I don't knock out your Ralts. I know that you can't, you'll take at least one more turn, probably multiple turns, because you can't, for you to get another Gardevoir set up, because you can't rare candy. So I'm going to offer up my Gallade, my non-EX attacker that I don't really care about, take a single prize knockout here, and then I have a Gardevoir GX set up already. I'm setting up another one. I'm more consistent than you. Hopefully, I will be able to just kind of run you out of Gardevoirs.
Yeah, very smart play from Tobias here. And he has a hand full of energy too, so he can maybe threaten this Gardevoir GX that Minaki has if he chooses to try to take the knockout on Gallade.
And that's kind of the interesting spot that Minaki will now be in is, all right, well, this Gallade is active. I need to knock it out because I can't just let it keep attacking me. It is a pretty efficient attacker. However, I also don't necessarily want to commit a whole lot to knocking it out. I don't want to leave my Gardevoir GX vulnerable, especially for only one prize.
All right, and there is the Sensitive Blade for the knockout. Action is now on Minaki to try and figure out what he can do to take this game.
Yeah, Secret Spring attaches to the Tapu Lele GX on the bench, and now we're going to see an N. And again, Tobias, because of the Octillery, and especially because of the interaction between Gallade and Octillery, although it's very possible that Gallade is not on the board after this turn, he's kind of protected from N. That's one of the reasons that players are playing the Octillery with that Abyssal Hand ability is just, all right, end me to 1, end me to 2, I'll end myself to 1 or 2, and then I'll just draw extra cards. So it doesn't actually matter. You don't really putting me off of any cards, whereas Minaki does not have that luxury. No Octillery in his list.
Minaki actually drew the double colorless off the end of 4, exactly what he needed to take the knockout on Gallade. It is now tied up 3-3 prizes, but this Gardevoir might be in a world of hurt.
Yeah, the problem here is that if Tobias ends up knocking out this Gardevoir,
Tobias drawing a double colorless.
Yeah, if Tobias ends up knocking out this Gardevoir, which he looks like he will be doing, he is committing a lot to it, and it can get punished by the Tapu Lele GX on the bench. However, again, there's no Ralts on the board for Minaki. He's off of Gardevoir for at least a couple of turns.
Yeah, and that Parallel City kind of hurting a little bit because we see him eyeing Tapu Lele GX. Might have a Rescue Stretcher in hand or something like that, but no, it's just a Versus Seeker. All right.
Yeah, Versus Seeker to end. So again, he's putting himself on only 3 cards. Doesn't actually matter because he has the Abyssal Hand and putting Minaki down to 3 cards as well.
Yeah, and it's always really great to end right before you're about to take those 2 prizes.
Yeah, exactly. The optimal time to end is when you can draw as many cards as possible. And let's see what Minaki can put together. It looks like his 3 cards are actually pretty good with just access to 3 supporters.
Exactly. We see a Choice Band come down on the Ralts on the bench. Let's see what Abyssal Hand gets. Tobias looks like a bunch of supporters. He does have an Ultra Ball.
Yeah, I have to imagine that Ultra Ball is going to find a Curly if he has access to another one. Looks like he is running 3. Just trying to say, I know you can potentially respond with your Tapu Lele GX. So I'm just going to set up another Gardevoir, and hopefully that'll be enough to win the game.
Exactly. Gardevoir GX is such a powerful Pokemon coming out from Burning Shadows, and it's really being showcased here in this finals.
Right, one prize left for Tobias. Any knockout, including a knockout on that small Alolan Vulpix on the bench, will win him this game and bring him one game closer to being crowned a world champion. What can Minaki put together here? He does have a lot. He has a Sycamore, so the end did not actually end up hurting him. Just going to go ahead and discard some cards, draw 7. Needs to find something here. He needs to find an energy.
Well, he got a double colorless.
So he has a double colorless in hand. It might just kind of be too late for to try to get a Gardevoir set up. It doesn't actually hurt him to get a Ralts here because he already has kind of a low HP target with the Alolan Vulpix. However, he doesn't have enough turns left in this game to actually set up a Gardevoir, especially evolving straight from Kirlia. He just has to hope that nothing goes wrong with this Tapu Lele.
Yeah, and unfortunately for him, double colorless is also kind of a liability facing down Gardevoir GX because it adds an extra damage to his attack if he gets it.
Yeah, any energy and a Gardevoir will do it for Tobias here. Both players at one prize. It's been pretty interesting to see how this game's played out. Just a lot of back and forth. Minaki, again, not having access to that Octillery, not having access to as many explosive starts with only one rare candy in his deck, but he has managed to pull it out here and bring it down to the wire. Just 1-1 prizes.
Wow, there was the energy. Gardevoir GX comes down, energy, infinite force for knockout. Yep. Tobias takes game 1 of Juniors finals at the World Championships.
Yeah, so that went pretty much exactly like we said. Tobias just was able to have easier access to Gardevoirs there. You know, he even though that last Gardevoir did come from a Kirlia, and like the old-fashioned way, basically just Kirlia into Gardevoir, he just had more of them. Eventually, he just realized, all right, I'm gonna, like the turn where he Guzma'd the Ralt, and he just realized, all right, I'm gonna put you off of having any more Gardevoir. Like it'll take you 3 more turns to get this thing out. You have 1 in play. I have 2 in play. Yeah, you have the Tapu Lele, but that has a lot fewer hit points than Gardevoir. I think the builds of the deck specifically are what led to that decision there, where Tobias was able to just say, all right, I just have more than you. I can find all of my pieces easier than you can.
Yeah, we talk about the importance of Bridget. Tobias was the one who actually was able to use it turn 1, where Minaki, his deck's even more focused around it because you need those Ralts in play and then be able to use Beacon to get those Kirlia. And that's something we didn't see from him that game.
And actually, interestingly enough, looking over at Tobias's list, he doesn't run any of the Alolan Vulpix or Diancie or anything like that. We've seen pretty much every other list we've seen has one of these kind of starting Pokemon that let you search for Pokemon or let you evolve and just kind of smooth out your consistency a bit. But he's actually foregoing that entirely for that 2-2 line of Octillery.
Yeah, I mean, when you get turn 2 Rare Candy Gardevoir GX, you really don't need anything else.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of power in just, all right, it's very rare that I'm going to prize my Octillery, so I can bridge it on turn 1 for the Remoraid, and that'll draw me enough cards once I get to evolve it.
Exactly. Look at that focus. He's 1 game away from being world champion.
It does help Minaki here to be going first, because he can now, like he's already kind of inherently slower, and now he just has an extra turn to start evolving. The unfortunate part is that Tobias can start rare candying earlier than Minaki can start evolving.
All right, the prizes, the 1 max potion is in the prizes. It may come in if the game actually goes long.
2 Versus Seekers and a Tapu Lele for Tobias, so he's not going to have access to as many supporters. And yeah, like you were saying, the max potion is something interesting. Minaki is only running 1 copy, but it can be big here. Just the ability to kind of, you saw early in the game the Gardevoirs were just kind of dealing small amounts of damage to each other. That's often how it'll happen in these early games. And max potion can really just kind of undo your opponent's whole turn at very little cost to you if you've allocated your energy right.
All right, that Sycamore was great, discarding some cards that he doesn't really need in this matchup. Granted, there was a Kirlia and a Gardevoir GX. It got him an Ultra Ball and a Ralts, so we could see that Alolan Vulpix come out, which we do. And this is the start he kind of wanted.
Yeah, this is basically exactly what he wanted. Besides having to discard important pieces to his deck, he has multiple Ralts in play, which is step 1. He's going to be able to attack with the Alolan Vulpix, or he's not going to be able to attack, but he has the Alolan Vulpix in play now. He even has a Parallel City to kind of put Tobias in a position where he's saying, all right, well, if you want to play a Tapu Lele, you can't get kind of your ideal setup. Then you are limited to 3 bench spaces. And besides Tobias's 1 copy of Field Blower, he has no way to interact with those stadiums. So that'll be in play for a very long time. And if Minaki ever plays a second one, it's going to stay in play for the entire game.
Yeah, Parallel City putting in work against Bridget. And I think that's what he's asking about. Like, all right, can I still get 2 Pokemon with Bridget?
Yeah, it looks like they're talking to the judges about something. I'm not really sure what, but yeah, that much better turn 1 start for Minaki here. He unfortunately is going to have to discard that energy to retreat, so he'll kind of be behind an energy attachment in a way, but it's going to be worth it for him to just smooth out his consistency with that beacon. Hopefully get 2 Curlies in play, maybe even have a situation where he's searching, he gets a Rare Candy Gardevoir and then searches for a Curly and can kind of have 2 much easier, which is really was his downfall last game, was just not being able to consistently have those Gardevoirs out.
All right, so there's Tapu Lele GX, Wonder Tag, searching his deck for any supporter he chooses to. It does look like he's going for that Bridget, but he can only get 2, so he'll probably just get 2 Ralts.
Yeah, I don't think you can really afford to get anything but 2 Ralts. You want to have an Octillery in play, but you can always, like Remoraid isn't going to get knocked out anytime soon. You can always commit the energy to retreat it if you have to. You just want to end up with kind of the same board position either way, which is 2 multiple Ralts and a Remoraid.
All right, and he does have the energy for turn. And wow, the one other way to discard the stadium and play Iron Pool from Remoraid.
Oh yeah, the very seldom used attack just actually gets there.
Yeah, or Ion Pool, yeah, there we go. Wow, that's great for him.
Right. Yeah, that's one way to cut him off.
Yeah, now we can actually save his Field Blower for maybe Choice Bands or even the second Parallel City.
And here we go with the Professor Sycamore, or stadium-less Minaki coming down here. Let's see what he can put together. He does have a Kirlia.
All right, that's exactly what he needs. Kirlia and an Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball could get him a second Kirlia, and then he could beacon for 2 Gardevoir if he chooses to.
It seems like a reasonable play. He's going to go ahead and look through his deck and just make sure he knows what's going on. But he has 2 Curly in hand. He can evolve both of them. Like you said, Beacon, have 2 Gardevoir GXs. The one downside of Beacon as opposed to something like Diancie is that it can be disrupted with N. So, we could see a turn where Minaki just Beacon, searches his deck, says, all right, I'm going to get 2 Gardevoir GXs. I'm going to have them in my hand. And then Tobias just plays an N and kind of resets all of that hard work.
All right, there's the retreat into the Alolan Vulpix. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any energy in hand.
Yeah, he did have to discard the one that was a T attached on the first turn to retreat into the Vulpix. That's going to be a problem. But I think at this point in the game, he is just happy to have those 2 Curly in play, and he's going to have 2 Gardevoir GX if there's no disruption from Tobias. So, again, we said that he had a hard time with kind of keeping Gardevoirs on the board, and now he's going to have at least 1. He just chooses to go with the other Ralts for Beacon, which I think is actually smart. He wants to get set up. You don't he can just there's more ways to find a Gardevoir GX. Kind of less important than just having multiples of them and just streaming them in like he failed to in game 1.
Yeah, his hand's really good for next turn. Let's see if he's going to be able to keep it. Tobias does draw a Rare Candy off the top of the deck. So we might see another turn 2 Gardevoir GX.
Yeah, I couldn't quite see if he had a Gardevoir in hand. I know he has an Octillery in hand, though. So he can do something like retreat and then evolve to Octillery.
But wow, he chooses to evolve straight away, not retreating.
And we do see that N come down. So again, that Gardevoir GX and that Ralt are going away, which honestly, this is one of the better positions to be end in. Obviously, you'd rather have the cards that you use your attack and searched for, but he just the important part is that Minaki has those Curlias and can evolve them to Gardevoirs at any time. And he is drawing 6 cards, so he'll probably be able to play a Ralts next turn either way.
All right, fresh 6 for both players. Looking at Minaki's hand, there is a Gardevoir and a couple of energy, and there's no Gardevoir from Tobias, and he couldn't even retreat the Octillery.
Yeah, retreating artillery is interesting there because he knew he was ending, so he knew he was kind of had the chance of ending up with nothing, and it really is worse for him to send up a Ralts or a Kirlia and
wow,
hope that
I
he can draw
like this
something.
play. Guzma, bring up the Kirlia. Now you have your Gardevoir GX. You can attach a couple energy and take the knockout with Infinite Force, really putting Tobias on the back foot here.
Yep, and this is exactly the same sort of play we saw actually from Tobias last game, which was, all right, I see the weakness in your board state. You don't have a whole lot of Gardevoir set up. I have this one set up, and now I'm going to maybe not make a risky play, but make an aggressive play to kind of cut you off of Gardevoir if I can.
And it's looking like Parallel City did its job where he's now struggling to find Ralts. And I think he goes for the smack?
It looks like, yeah, Tobias is just, it looked like he motioned to pass the turn.
Oh, no.
He's actually going to concede the game.
Okay. The game.
Yeah, he's just realizing, all right, I don't have anything going on after this. You're going to attack me, knock out my Ralts. That was a very, very quick game 2 there. Unfortunate draws from Tobias. Just couldn't really put anything together. He had to, we saw that he made that decision to not retreat the Remoraid, just saying, all right, I don't know that I'm going to guarantee that I draw my Gardevoir and can do things. I don't necessarily want to expose my Gardevoir, so that's fine. I'm just going to leave this here. And then, it got Guzma anyway. He had nothing on that turn, and Minaki ties things up. Just one more game until we crown a junior world champion.
Yeah, Minaki there definitely showing the power of his Gardevoir GX. Basically forcing Tobias to concede within a couple turns after his first attack. Like, this is too powerful. If you don't even attack me, I'm going to get so many energy on this thing that you just won't be able to survive. Yeah,
definitely. And we did see, it didn't actually come into play because Tobias' setup was just so bad, but Minaki did have that second Curly in play, so he was just saying, all right, this is kind of what the downside of his deck we saw in game 1, which is that it's harder to get Gardevoirs out faster when you need them. However, the upside of this 4 Curlia build is saying, all right, I can kind of, if I have a few turns to be left alone, I can set up more of them. Like, I have more consistent access, it's just less explosive access. And again, didn't end up actually mattering, but if that game had gone on a few more turns, he would have access to another Gardevoir GX. He probably would have prioritized things differently, maybe got another Ralts, and that's kind of the power of that consistency with the 4 Curlia.
Exactly, but he did have the advantage of going first, which helped him to evolve into those Curlia first. So now,
yeah, an advantage he is not going to have
going back to Tobias.
I do think Tobias is inherently an advantage just based on how the decks work. It's not exactly like Gardevoir is a super explosive deck where getting the first one matters a whole lot, because again, you don't commonly want to expose you don't want to expose your first one too often. You don't want to, load it up. It's not like it's going to do a bunch of damage for no repercussion, but you do want to have them more consistently, and the ability to kind of surprise with a rare candy Gardevoir is where you want to be. Looks like we're taking a look at half of the prizes from Tobias there, filling out the rest. 2 Fairy of his 8s and a 1/1 Curlia line.
Nothing
prize.
too bad.
Nothing too bad, yeah.
And looking at his hand, I think there is the Bridget. He started the Tapu Lele, but when he don't even need to Wonder Tag for the Bridget, it's pretty great.
Yeah, 2 versus Secret Prize, and here we go. Tapu Lele starts from both players. Tobias Stromdal will start things off here. Whoever wins this game will win the match and be crowned the 2017 Pokemon Trading Card Game Junior Division World Champion. So these players are playing for a lot here.
Yeah, there's always something on the line, but right now it's the title of World Champion.
It's the biggest. This is the biggest match you could play in Pokemon. It's the biggest. It's the biggest event. It's the World Champion. It's what everyone plays the entire season for, is to be crowned a World Champion. And Tobias is making a lot of headway into getting himself there. He is starting with that Bridget on turn 1, like we talked about. It's been very important. 2 Ralts, a Curlia. 2 Ralts and a Remoraid. There's no Parallel City in play or anything. He has the Tapu Lele start, which is sort of unfortunate, but it's fine. He's building his board up just like he wants. As long as he has an energy to play this turn, he will have kind of the almost ideal turn 1 out of his deck.
Yeah, what's really good for Minaki, though, is I do believe Parallel City is in his hand. It's an easy way to take care of a Gardevoir without it actually being in play. Just like, well, I'm going to force you to discard a Ralt or anything. But no, we see the retreat from Tapu Lele.
Yeah,
meaning he's kind of playing around that Parallel City now.
Yeah, Tobias definitely had the read there, just saying, I don't want to leave this GX active in the active position. I might as well commit the energy now. And if you Parallel City me, which you've done before, I'm just going to discard this Tapu Lele and not worry about it too much.
All right, looking at Minaki's hand, there is an Ultra Ball, and yeah, he just discards the Parallel City. He's like, it's not worth it anymore.
Yeah, I don't need it now.
It'll be interesting to see what he gets. He definitely needs Ralts, but if he gets Ralts and not really a Alolan Vulpix, he's... Okay, there we go. Bridget.
Yeah, he just has to play the Bridget here. Again, both players, this is exactly what they want. And even sort of Minaki more so because he just needs more copies on the board. He, again, no Octillery in his list. He is going for that Alolan Vulpix. So I think his play is going to be pretty much his standard turn one. Oh, he doesn't have an energy. He just looks like he just passed the turn.
Really?
Okay,
Oh,
I was going to say
no.
his turn one play is just attach, retreat, and beacon, but not having any energy to attach means he can't move that Tapu Lele, which means he can't beacon, which means he's immediately on the back foot.
All right, now action's on Tobias to see if he can get Gardevoir in play and start attacking if he chooses to. There's an Ultra Ball, discarding a double colorless. And it looks like he's eyeing that Octillery.
Yeah, unfortunate to get rid of the double colorless. It is a really valuable energy here, but he's just saying, all right, I need to get this Octillery out. This will draw me, this will give me more value over time than a double colorless will, especially given the fact that Minaki is slightly stumbling.
All right, Octillery comes down, evolving the Remoraid double colorless on the Ralts, and a Sycamore with 0 cards in hand. Brand new 7.
Let's see what he can
see a rare
put
candy,
together.
I believe. And a Gardevoir, and a Corellia. But I don't think there's Fairy Energy. Maybe he can whittle his hand down to maybe Abyssal Hand and no Fairy Energy.
Yeah, no Fairy Energy, so it looks like he's not going to be as explosive here. Abyssal Hand draws 2 cards. Still not hitting any Fairy, but that's not super important.
That turn's not too shabby.
Yeah, he would like to have the Fairy, obviously, but just the ability to...
Then on Minaki's side, he has his 1 rare candy and a Corellia. Who needs Beacon when you just have it in your hand?
So he's actually kind of matching Tobias here. He doesn't have the exact same setup because he doesn't have that 3rd Ralts for an out, and he doesn't have the energy, obviously, but they both have a Gardevoir GX and a Corellia in play, so Tobias still ahead. He still has more energy. He has the choice band, but not after a pretty irrelevant turn 1 from Minaki there. It seems like he was able to recover pretty well.
All right. It doesn't look like he got any basic Fairy Energy, but he does have the double colorless to retreat to the Vulpix, and we will see a Beacon.
Yeah, drawing the double colorless on the Wonder Energy there is kind of interesting because he can't Secret Spring the Wonder Energy, and he also can't attach it to anything other than a Fairy type. So he has to commit the double colorless there. Overall, not a huge deal. He just would have liked to have had that be a Fairy so he could Secret Spring it and just kind of start getting built up. Because again, he is again passing with no energy on the board.
Yeah, Beacon chose Ralts and a Gardevoir GX. Trying to hope it stays in his hand. He's kind of trying to dodge an N from Tobias here.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Ralts and the Gardevoir GX was his his beacon targets when he had this play, almost exact same play last turn, just valuing having another Gardevoir GX in play and then playing the Ralts to hopefully kind of keep building up his board.
The one thing Tobias must be ecstatic about is this Ralts surviving a turn, not getting knocked out. It could possibly turn into another Gardevoir if he chooses to.
Yeah, he is. He has 2 Gardevoir GX on the board, and the interesting thing is that it's not as if, again, we've talked a lot about the being the first player to act here, so it's not as if missing these energy is from Minaki is super important because he's...
And wow, hold on, the Guzma coming down, and yeah, he still needs to switch, which that's what he wants. And now an Infinite Force could take out a Corellia and leave Minaki with just a lone Gardevoir GX like how we saw in Game 1.
Yeah, this is kind of exactly how all these games have gone, is just players trying to cut each other off of Gardevoirs. Fortunately for Minaki here, he does have a Gardevoir already, so he can respond, and he has the Ralts, of course, so he can start getting built up for later.
Yeah, but unfortunately, with no basic energy in his hand, he doesn't have access to Secret Spring as of yet. He had to attach the Wonder Energy too, just in case, because all your attacks take a Fairy Energy, not any colorless.
Yeah, at the very least here, he could maybe Twilight GX, shuffle some of his important cards from his discard pile back into his deck. He definitely is going to need to put something together here. The Tobias having 2 Gardevoir GX, allowing him to Secret Spring twice in a turn and have a normal attachment is going to be very, very big.
Yeah, and with the possibility of 3 next turn with that Corellia in play, it's definitely a scary sight, especially for the penultimate match.
It looks like the Parallelity does come down at just 120 damage, just choosing to put some pressure on that Gardevoir, saying, all right, I'm not going to take a knockout, but I've only committed 1 energy to this Gardevoir. The unfortunate part, again, is that he is not going to be able to get a Gardevoir GX in play next turn because he only has 1 rare candy and he's used it.
Yeah,
so he's
exactly.
If this Gardevoir does get knocked out, he is immediately on the back foot again.
So we see Secret Spring come down on the bench Gardevoir GX. A Versus Seeker Acerola.
All right.
Oh, man. This means he could use another Secret Spring if he gets any more Fairy Energy.
Yeah, I have to imagine he would have, just if he had more in his hand, he would have used it. But he does have 2 more here, 2 more activations of Secret Spring.
But as it looks like, yeah, he's choosing to attach to the bench because if he played everything in his hand, he'd be 20 damage short from knocking out the Gardevoir GX.
Yeah, so it looks like Tobias is going to choose to do kind of the same thing that Minaki chose to last turn, which is just, all right, I'm going to Infinite Force you. It's not going to be for a knockout. I can't commit enough in order to get the knockout, but I'm going to put some pressure on you.
All right, there's an Ultra Ball. Most likely getting a Corellia. He really has no other choice.
Yeah, he just needs to keep this steady stream of Gardevoirs happening. Like we said, if that Gardevoir had gotten knocked out, he would have been in a very bad position. But now he's just 1 turn away from playing another Gardevoir GX, so it's not as big of a concern as you see him attach that double colorless too.
And there's the Sycamore coming down. What can he really find to try and mount a comeback?
He just needs to make sure that he has Gardevoirs in play, which he does have 1 in his hand, it looks like now. So he's fine, I think, just doing some damage here with this Gardevoir and saying, yeah, it's going to get knocked out. It has some damage on it already, but I have this other one waiting on the bench.
All right, and there's another rare candy draw from Tobias. It does not look like he has access to a Gardevoir GX or Gallade, but he definitely has options with a Versus Seeker in hand.
He will need 2 more attachments in order to knock out this opposing Gardevoir GX.
And here we see another Guzma. Same exact play, essentially, from game 1.
You know, this is actually really smart here. I like that Tobias is choosing to just, again, all right, I don't, you know, your Gardevoir GX that was active is already damaged. You've already committed a double colorless to this Corellia. I'm just going to take a knockout on that. And kind of, again, put you in a position where you don't have any.
One card from Abyssal hand was Gardevoir GX, allowing him to rare candy a 3rd one into play.
It's a pretty good draw. There's a knockout. Tobias down to 4 prizes. Minaki left with just a Gardevoir GX that already has damage on it as his lone attacker here.
Right now, Minaki's chance to become world champion is on the line. On the back foot, staring down 3 Gardevoir GX from Tobias.
Yeah, 3 Gardevoir GX energy on all of them. Of course, 3 Secret Spring activations available.
A card like N doesn't really help because of Octillery, and he's really trying to dig through his deck to find something he can do.
Looks like Corellia, Ralts is going to get shoveled back in off of the Super Rod. Minaki just recognizing I need to draw these cards. I can't. I need to, again, keep a steady stream of Gardevoir GX in play.
And this is where that prized Max Potion could have really come in handy for Minaki here.
Yeah, it's exactly positions like these where the Max Potion would come in handy. Is just you've done a little bit of damage here and there, and you're kind of planning on something. You took that Corellia knockout because you're kind of planning that this Gardevoir GX already has damage on it, and there's different, there's 1 energy on each of them. But if he had the Max Potion, he would just be able to kind of undo that and say, all right, well, now I just have this Gardevoir you've left me with that has no damage.
All right, and there's an Infinite Force for 150 damage. This Gardevoir GX will go down this turn, putting Tobias to 2 prizes. Now all he really has to do is set up his other Gardevoirs to make sure they can take a knockout in the incoming turn.
Yeah, he does need an energy if he just of any type to get the knockout here. I know he has a supporter in his hand. Looks like he has Professor Sycamore, just considering what exactly he wants to do.
He also has the double colorless, but I'm not sure he wants to commit it to the active. But you might have to just in case.
I think it's actually fine too, because if it gets him the knockout and he's going down to 2 prizes. So like this, the active Gardevoir on Tobias' side is can be knocked out pretty easily, but that's fine. He has 2 more. He can accelerate energy with Secret Spring. It's fine to just kind of not take any risks, basically.
And one thing he wants to make sure he has is a Guzma next turn to try and finish the game off.
Yeah, similar to the game that we saw in the sequence we saw in game 1 is that Minaki was forced to start attacking with the Tapu Lele, which just has to attach energy to itself. It has to build up a good amount of energy to energy drive for a reasonable amount of damage, and has much fewer hit points than Gardevoir, so it's just kind of an easy target for opposing Gardevoirs.
There we see an Ultra Ball getting an Octillery from the deck, really just using it as fodder for discard for Sycamore. You don't want to draw it off of Sycamore. Yeah,
he just doesn't want to draw it off of Sycamore, and he doesn't want to draw it off of a potential N into Abyssal Hand. Again, Tobias does have N protection with Abyssal Hand, but he just wants to have as few irrelevant cards in his deck as possible. He is very close to winning this game and becoming world champion, so he just wants to make sure that nothing goes wrong.
All right, we do see another Fairy Energy in his hand. There's a Choice Band also.
And so now he's in an interesting spot where he doesn't necessarily need to attach the Choice Band or anything like that, but again, he wants to thin out his deck. He wants to make sure that ends hurt him as little as possible.
All right, and
there's a knockout.
Infinite Force. Tobias goes down to 2 prizes left. He is 1 GX Pokemon knockout away from being world champion.
Yeah, and with no access to Gardevoir this turn from Minaki, I don't know that he can really stop this from happening. He's committing a double colorless onto the Tapu Lele.
Yeah, he has to, because if he doesn't, just 1 energy on this Gardevoir GX takes a knockout on Tapu Lele GX. But it's kind of a double-edged sword, because now if he gets double colorless or if he gets an energy and a Choice Band, it's game over.
Here we go. So Minaki drawing 7 cards out the Sycamore that he found with the other Tapu Lele here, trying to stay in this game. He is going to take a knockout, his first knockout of the game, taking 2 prizes. But a double colorless does it for him, an energy and a Choice Band does it for him. 2 Fairy energy
there we
Secret Spring does it for him. That's the knockout.
Tobias.
And Tobias Stromdal is your 2017 Junior Division Trading Card Game World Champion. Congratulations to Tobias.
Wow. Man, just over